All right, working on a 2000 Volkswagen Golf TDI, and it is a lot of fun. Anyway, this car has many miles, and I put many hours into fixing it. And this is going to be my first uploaded video on this thing. I wanted to get some information. You can see the mileage, 413,475. And see all the videos posted about people talking about their EGR assembly and their intakes, and I figured, well, I'd take my intake off and clean it. And looking at my intake, I was quite surprised at old Krusty here, because looking in here, I know it's hard to see, bear with me, kind of see it at the angle. I'm working at night, midnight mechanic work, and you can see it's pretty clean. Now, this was no fun getting out, and the videos where people say that it's you know, they make it look like it's a quick job to get out. Bullshit. You're looking at about an hour and a half it took me. And I've been working on junk for years. Anyway, just a little rundown. I got 413,000 miles, and that's pretty clean. Now, I will tell you, I run Chevron diesel, and on every fill-up I put about 2 gallons of premium Chevron. So I only use Chevron. It only seems to work with Chevron. Now, I'm not telling you to do that. I'm telling you that's what I do. The car runs kind of a little bit hotter on that, but I've got a intercooler, aftermarket intercooler on here, and she runs about 40 degrees cooler with this aftermarket intercooler that I installed from China that, of course, didn't fit properly, and I had to modify the hell out of it to get it to fit. So one thing on removing your intake, you got a line. You can't get to the intake bolt. Sorry, I don't have a camera. I've got this headlight flashlight on me. It's hard to see, but anyway, when you're taking the intake off, you got the oil cooling or the oil turbo line right here. And the problem with your last bolt on your intake is the bracket for that thing is in the way. So you're best to remove the nut from the, let me get some light on this, because you guys, I'm going to save you a lot of time. Okay, look. So when you go to take off your intake, remove the nut on that bracket that holds your oil cooling line on the exhaust right here. So then what you're able to do is move this cooling line carefully, because it's still connected. Pry that cooling line or your turbo oil line, pry it out a little bit so you can get your wrench on there, and it's going to be an Allen. So you got to use an Allen on some of these. You can't use the socket, it won't fit. And I know that you can take off, well, I took off the intake with the EGR assembly intact. I know you can take the EGR assembly off first, makes it easier, but this lovely car has rusted nuts. So this nut had rusted, and it's hiding behind the EGR assembly and the return line for the exhaust gas, so it's impossible to get to with the intake on. So I had to take off the EGR assembly return gas line from the intake, and then take the intake out to get at this top nut that stripped out, and I had to use that, which takes out stripped nuts. Anyway, you get those at Harbor Freight for more than what they're worth. But yeah, I'm just quite amazed. I just wanted to post a video on this thing. I've been doing so much work on it, and I figured, you know, I'll watch videos on YouTube and see what people are doing, and then go ahead and do it myself. You can see my homemade patch on my exhaust flex pipe. It didn't quite hold up, so I've got another pipe that's going on tonight, but that has a strip nut on the turbo. That's going to be fun to get off. So just thought I'd give a little heads up. You're doing your if you're doing your intake on your TDI and your Golf, probably apply to the Jettas and the other ones. You're going to have to get that oil cooling line unbolted with a 13mm nut from the exhaust manifold. Push it out a little bit so you can get your Allen key. So you get your Allen key here. Your Allen key. Don't ask me what size. I can't recall. Let's see if we can figure it out. That is a 6mm Allen. So you get your 6mm Allen key on the intake bolts to get your intake bolts out. And you got to be careful to clean these intake bolts so you don't have dirt in them and you stick your Allen key in there and you strip them out, because then you're going to be out of luck. And 4 of them are pretty easy. There's look, we got 2, 4, 6. There's 6 of them. One of them's behind that bracket. That's the far one on the right side. So you got to loosen that bracket, pry it out with a big screwdriver, bend it a little bit. Don't break your line. Don't reef on it too hard. Just give yourself enough room to get that 6mm Allen key in there to get it out. Be patient. 2 are hiding between the exhaust manifold and the intake, and you have to feel them. There's just no other way to do it. You have to lay on top of the engine and stick your fingers in there. And remember, the exhaust bolts are nuts. So what's holding the exhaust together are nuts, and what holds, see the nut there? I think it's a 13. And what holds the intake in are the Allens, right? Okay, so you're not going to mess it up. So you kind of reach around back here, feel in for your 6mm Allens. You're going to have to use different extensions. You're going to have to use a long extension on some of them. You're going to have to use a short extension. And then you're not going to be able to get, I think it was 2 of them I had to use the Allen key. And you know, of course, Volkswagen just got to make it so goddamn difficult to get anything. They just love it. Over here for the, a lot of people drain their fluid or antifreeze. What I did, take your hoses off, take your hose off on the passenger side really quick. Pinch it in half, put a zip tie on it, and get it up in here behind a vacuum line, right, just to hold it up. While it's draining, you have to have help. Hold your port so you don't drain out all your antifreeze, right? I probably lost about a quart, so you hold your port on that intake. Where is it? So you hold the port here. So when you pop that cooling line, this is going to start draining. You're going to lose all your antifreeze. So you pop the cooling line, you hand it to someone else, they bend it in half, throw the zip tie on it while you hold your finger on here. And then on this side, which is the driver's side, I had a clamp on there. So I used a standard C-clamp, or you can use a line clamp, but I didn't have one, right? So I clamped that off pretty good, not too tight where you damage the line, and I already loosened it so it was ready to go. So I pulled this cooling line, handed it off to someone, they zip tied it, bent it over, and then I had my finger on here, and then jumped over to this line real quick after they zip tied it, pulled that one, zip tied that one, and I probably only lost about 1.5 quarts of fluid. So there's no real need to drain your system. That's a waste of time. So when I'm all done, I'll put in some distilled water, about 1 quart, and we'll be good to go. But you got to keep your lines high or they'll start leaking, even with the zip tie. So you can see one here, zip tied, bent in half, one here. So for some reason I got a miss. I'm hoping it's not timing. I gotta buy the VCDS system or whatever the hell they call it, and I order that in so I can see what's going on. I'm tired of paying the Mickey Mouse mechanics, you know, $120 an hour, and you check the work they do, and half the shit they do, they don't torque anything down to specs, and they don't tell you what's going on, or they do shoddy work, and I'm just sick of it. So I do all the work on this thing anymore now, except rebuilding the engine. So just replace the injectors, waiting for some nozzles. I'm going to order some bigger nozzles And I'm just hoping this turbo, original turbo, I hope this turbo lasts a little bit longer. It's variable vane, so I'm going to be using Mr. Clean oven cleaner to clean the turbo. You can look that stuff up online, cleaning your turbo with oven cleaner. That'll be after I clean the intake, put it back on, and then I put this top end back together. I'll get underneath it, and I'm going to oven clean the turbo. And of course, at the same time, I'll be replacing that section of flex pipe, which is not the flex pipe. I've actually just bought the whole new, not new, but you don't put new parts in an old car. But where the hell is it? Oh, here it is. So what I've done is I've got a replacement part here with a cat and everything here. And that's a good cat. And wrapped it. There's the flex pipes under here wrapped with high temp silicone. It wasn't leaking, but I put high temp silicone on it, wrapped it, banded it, and we'll see. So what else can I bring up? What else can I bring up on taking this thing apart? I think that's pretty much it. So, you know, take your time. Very important. Use PB or liquid wrench. I'm using PB. This works pretty good, and I've got this weird straw that I had for some other stuff. That works good to get down there, get at the bolts. And the other thing too is just to let you know, you want to check, put a vacuum on this actuator, where this is the actuator and this is the